Imagine for a moment a world where the mountains around you actually breathe, where rivers whisper secrets, maybe, and every rustle in the forest carries a message from unseen forces. What if your deepest well-being, your health, your whole sense of belonging was, profoundly intertwined with these invisible dimensions?
That's a powerful image.
It really is. And today, we're diving deep into just such a world. We're taking a deep dive into Himalayan shamanism, specifically in Nepal. It's this incredibly intricate, vibrant spiritual system.
Absolutely. And at its core, it's really rooted in these animistic beliefs. The idea that the entire cosmos is alive.
Alive? How so?
Well, inhabited by countless spirits, deities, ancestors, even ghosts. It's perceived as a truly living world, not just inert matter.
Okay. And what's really striking is how this indigenous animistic foundation isn't static, right? It's layered.
Exactly. Over centuries, you've got Hinduism and Buddhism overlaying it, creating this incredibly rich, syncretic spiritual ecology. It's not one replacing the other. It's more like a fluid blend, different traditions serving different but equally vital roles for the community.
So if this is a living, breathing cosmos, who are the key figures helping people navigate it all, who steps in when things go wrong?
Well, that's where the shamans come in. They're really the essential intermediaries.
The intermediaries.
Yeah, mediating between our human world and that unseen spirit realm. Their main job is to restore balance whenever disruptions happen.
And our deep dive today is going to unpack the unique and really ancient spiritual practices found in these remote Western regions, Karnali and Humla.
That's right. And these areas are particularly significant.
Why is that? Just isolation?
Pretty much. Their geographic isolation means they've served as vital repositories of really archaic practices, almost like time capsules in a way.
So not just old beliefs gathering dust.
Not at all. They're remarkably functional systems. Still active today, they guide social regulation, justice, even ecological management. These systems have sustained communities for millennia.
Wow. So as we journey into this ancient worldview, what's one surprising aha moment you think that might resonate with listeners today, right off the bat?
I think it's the profound sense of interconnectedness. We often separate health, environment, community in the modern West.
So we definitely do.
But in this worldview, they're just inextricably linked. Illness isn't merely a physical problem.
It's
often a symptom of a cosmic imbalance. And healing involves restoring harmony across all these dimensions: personal, social, environmental, spiritual.
That sounds incredibly holistic. So let's unpack that. If the cosmos itself is alive, what does that actually mean for daily life?
It means the natural world, mountains, rivers, forests, animals, isn't just scenery. It's not just out there.
It's active.
It's sentient, imbued with spirit life. This worldview really emphasizes the profound interconnectedness of absolutely everything. Your well-being isn't just about your body in isolation.
It's tied to everything else.
It's about your relationship with the entire visible and invisible world around you, your family, your community, the spirits of the land.
So human health and well-being are intrinsically linked to maintaining harmony, not just within your family or community, but with this whole cosmic web.
Exactly. And that leads directly to how they understand wellness, or illness, really. Misfortune, sickness. These are often traced back to human transgressions.
Transgressions, like what?
Things like disrespecting a sacred site, harming certain animals, polluting a water source, or offending spirits in some way. It creates this very practical eco-spiritual ethic.
Ah, so your actions towards nature have direct consequences. For you, personally. Precisely. For your health, your prosperity. It's not abstract karma decades down the line. It can be immediate.
Okay, so when things do go wrong and you need to restore that harmony, who are the key figures? You mentioned shamans, but what are they called? Well, the general term you often hear is dhami jhakri. But, and this is crucial, it's not monolithic. There are actually two very distinct paths within that, with very different ways of relating to the spirit world.
Two distinct paths. Okay, let's start with the jhakri. What defines their approach?
The jhakri is often seen as, let's say, the archetypal shaman. A master of spirits.
Master of spirits. That sounds active.
Very active, and their calling is rarely chosen willingly. It's often involuntary, deeply traumatic sometimes, marked by what's called an initiatory illness.
An illness calls them.
Yes, or sometimes it's described as an abduction experience, perhaps by a band jhakri, a tutelary forest shaman spirit. This initial, often terrifying ordeal actually conditions them. It prepares them for a life of struggle, but also control over spirits.
So their relationship with spirits is active, authoritative, they're commanding them?
Exactly. Even when they're in a deep trance, their consciousness, their personality, generally remains intact. They are described as a conscious, controlling agent who commands spirit.
Fascinating. And their main tool?
Their primary ritual tool is the diangro drum. It's not just for rhythm.
No.
It's metaphorically seen as their vehicle or steed for soul journeys, for their atma or magical flight to other cosmic realms to retrieve souls or fight spirits.
And you see them with specific gear, too.
Oh, yeah. You'll often see them with elaborate headdresses, sometimes peacock feathers, bell bandoliers, specific robes, and their training is incredibly intense.
How so?
Long apprenticeships, often under multiple master shamans. They have to memorize vast amounts of oral texts, myths, chants, genealogies of spirits. It takes years.
Okay, that's the jhakri, active mastery, commanding spirits, intense training. Is there another way these communities connect, maybe a different kind of mediator?
Absolutely. And it's quite a contrast, really. You have the dhami.
The dhami, how are they different?
The dhami functions more as an oracular vessel or a spirit medium. Their power isn't usually won through struggle. It's often inherited, or they're chosen directly by a specific deity, like a kuldhami who serves their ancestral deities.
So their relationship with spirits is passive.
Much more passive, yes. When a dhami enters trance, their own personality is typically completely submerged by the possessing god or spirit. They become purely a mouthpiece for the divine entity speaking through them.
And they don't use the drum for trance.
Right. You generally won't see a drum used for the dhami's trance induction. Instead, they rely on things like chanting, rhythmic shaking, maybe holding sacred leaves called seoli, and being near their household shrine.
That's a really clear distinction then. Active command versus passive channeling. But I read that in Humla specifically, there's an even more refined partnership.
Yes, that's right. In Humla, the distinction is very specific and functional. You have the dhami note, the slightly different pronunciation, who is the trance medium possessed by local deities. This calling is seen as divine and avatalo.
Okay, the medium.
And the partner.
And then you have the dongri. The dongri is a distinct, often hereditary shaman assistant.
An assistant, what do? The dongri serves as the invoker, calling the deity. Crucially, they often act as the translator for the dhami's esoteric pronouncements, the akar, which can be archaic or symbolic language, and they guide the overall ritual process for the entranced dhami.
So a real team effort.
Definitely. And these Humla dhamis are incredibly multifunctional. They're healers, diviners, counselors, even adjudicators of local disputes, handling folk justice.
How do people know they're the real deal?
Their authenticity is validated by two key concepts. Sat, which means spiritual truth or efficacy, basically, do their rituals work, and bid, which refers to extraordinary powers or miracles they might display. It really shows these distinct pathways. Mastering chaos versus surrendering to divine will are both vital ways humans engage with the unseen.
Fascinating. So how do these complex roles translate into actual practices in different regions? Let's zoom in a bit. Tell us about the Masto cult of Karnali.
Okay, the Masto cult. This is a deeply rooted indigenous system. It's generally considered pre-Hindu, an ancestral belief system of the Khaz people, particularly strong in the Sindh Valley of Jumla. It's really ancient stuff.
And what's the nature of Masto itself? Is it a god with a statue, like Shiva or Vishnu?
Not at all. Masto is typically understood as formless, what scholars call aniconic, meaning it's not represented by idols or statues.
So how is it worshipped?
It's worshipped at outdoor sacred sites, natural places like groves or springs called Athan or sometimes Mandu. And Masto isn't usually seen as a single entity either. It's often conceived as a collective, most famously the Barabai Masto, the 12 brother Mastos and their sisters, the 9 Durga Bhavani. And the Masto Dhami, the medium for these deities, is often chosen directly by the deity, perhaps through dreams or visions. It demands a very disciplined life, ritually pure, often with specific taboos.
Right. And central to how the Masto cult functions is this idea you mentioned, the Duz versus Pap framework. Can you explain that?
Yeah, this is really core to understanding Masto's role. Masto deities primarily resolve dos. Dos refers to remedial faults, afflictions, imbalances in the world, things that can be corrected through ritual intervention. Think illness, disputes, crop failure.
Okay, correctable problems. How is that different from PAP?
Pap is generally understood more like the concept of sin in, say, Hinduism, a more permanent karmic stain, something that's perhaps beyond the scope of immediate ritual remedy by Masto. So the Mastos are seen as agents of divine justice and healing specifically for worldly problems, dealing with the here and now, fixing dues.
Got it. And how do they actually engage with Masto in a ritual? What happens?
The central ritual is called the Damalo. It's often a very dramatic trance event. The dhami begins to tremble uncontrollably. This state is called kampnu.
That signifies the spirit arriving.
Exactly. It shows the Masto deity entering and possessing the dhami, and then the deity speaks through the dhami.
What does it say?
It might deliver diagnoses for illnesses, give oracular advice on community matters, pass judgments in disputes, or perform direct healing acts, like blowing onto consecrated rice grains called duta dana, which are then given to the afflicted person.
And sacrifice is involved.
Yes, animal sacrifice, usually goats or chickens, and fire offerings, homa, are also key parts of master rituals. These are done for appeasement, to ensure rainfall or ward off calamities.
Okay, that gives us a clear picture of Masto. Now let's shift to the high-altitude Humla region. You mentioned the ancient religion of Bon there. What's its distinct character?
Right, Bon. It's an ancient religion, definitely pre-Buddhist in its origins, though it's interacted with Buddhism over time. It persists strongly in high-altitude Humla and retains many archaic, animistic, and you could say shamanic features.
So how does Bon view the world? Similar animism.
Very much so, perhaps even more intensely felt due to the harsh environment. In the Bon worldview, the landscape itself is absolutely sentient and sacred. It's populated by powerful forces.
Like what?
Well, there are the La, which are sky or celestial spirits, the Klu, who are powerful water and underworld deities often associated with snakes or dragons, and the Tsen, which are fierce, wild spirits often residing in mountains and rocks. Human life, survival really, depends on constant negotiation and maintaining balance with these forces.
And the mediators here are the Bonpo Lamas. Are they like monks, or more like the dhami or jhakri?
They're quite unique. Bonpo Lamas are typically householders, not monks living in monasteries. They often inherit their spiritual role and knowledge within their family lineage.
And their training, is it oral like the jhakri?
Yes, very much so. It involves memorizing vast amounts of oral texts, learning complex ritual procedures, mastering symbolic hand gestures called mudras, and they use unique ritual instruments.
Such as?
Things like the conch shell trumpet, dumkar, a large frame drum called nanga, different from the jhakri's jiangro, and sometimes even a trumpet made from a human thigh bone, the kangling, used in specific rites. And what's interesting is that some Bonpo practitioners are actually literate shamans. They might use Tibetan script not necessarily to read scripture like a Buddhist monk, but more as an aid memoir, a checklist, to help them recall the complex sequence of their vast oral rituals.
That's a fascinating blend. What are some of their key rituals focused on?
A lot of it is about maintaining balance with the environment and local spirits. They perform rituals of appeasement and exorcism constantly. For instance, appeasing a Klu to prevent floods or droughts, invoking the law for blessings on livestock or harvests, or exorcising malevolent Sen believed to cause illness or misfortune.
So very practical, earth-based concerns.
Absolutely. There's a major New Year cleansing ritual called Lag Yor, involving effigies to capture negativity and smoke offerings to purify the community and environment. There's Chaya Soa, a field purification ceremony before planting to ensure a fertile harvest. And they have complex death rituals designed to guide the consciousness of the deceased safely through the intermediate state, the bardo. Sometimes this even involves sky burial, though that's less common now.
It's so clear these practices aren't just, abstract beliefs. They are active, functional systems deeply woven into the very fabric of these communities, guiding everything from justice to farming.
Precisely. They are living traditions addressing immediate needs.
Okay, let's talk specifics now about the practical side.
Yeah.
The shaman's toolkit. If someone in a remote village falls ill, what's the very first step in this ancient medical system?
Almost invariably, the first step, the primary diagnostic tool, is jokana, divination.
Divination. To do what?
Its main purpose is to identify the supernatural cause of the illness or misfortune. Is it a ghost attack? Is it witchcraft? Bakshilago? Is it soul loss? Something else.
So it's like getting an X-ray or a scan, but for the spirit world. An investigative prelude.
That's a great way to put it. Exactly. Common methods involve the shaman examining patterns formed by consecrated rice grains, acheta, or perhaps sacred beads or stones cast onto a surface. It reveals the hidden etiology, the root cause of the problem, before treatment can begin.
Okay, they have a diagnosis from Jokana. What's the typical immediate intervention, maybe for less serious issues?
That would usually be sharfuk. It's a kind of energetic cleansing.
Charfuk, break that down for us.
Sure, it literally breaks down into two actions. Sweeping, which is jarnu, and blowing, which is fuknu.
Sweeping how?
The shaman might use sacred plants like juniper or specific leaves or peacock feathers or even just their hands to symbolically sweep negative influences or sickness off the patient's body.
And the blowing part, fukano.
That involves the shaman reciting powerful mantras or protective syllables and then blowing fuk either directly onto the patient's body, often specific points, or onto substances like water, ash, Karnali, or mustard seeds, which are then applied to the patient or ingested.
And this is generally for maybe minor ailments, a first response.
Yes, exactly. It's often seen as immediately effective for less severe problems, headaches, sudden pains, fright, the evil eye. It's a very popular first response treatment because it's quick, relatively simple, and doesn't usually involve full trance or possession.
Okay, so Jarfuk is for immediate issues, kind of like spiritual first aid. But what happens when something deeper is suspected? When those initial remedies aren't enough?
Right. If Cherkuk doesn't resolve the issue, or if the Jokana divination indicated a more serious cause like soul loss, then things escalate. That's when they move towards a major intervention. Often, this takes the form of a composite healing seance, typically an all-night puja or ritual.
An all-night event. How does that begin?
It usually starts with the afflicted person's family formally summoning a shaman, typically a jhakri for these kinds of serious cases involving soul journeys. The jhakri will likely perform jokana again, perhaps more intensely, to confirm the diagnosis. Very often, the diagnosis is soul loss, the belief that a part of the person's vital essence, their atma or sato, has been stolen or wandered off, often captured by a hungry spirit, a logu.
And if initial dry food didn't work or wasn't deemed sufficient?
Then the family sponsors this major, all-night puja. This is a significant undertaking. The jhakri will prepare, don their full ritual attire, the headdress, bells, specific garments. They create a sacred space, often in the family's home, and then the core of the ritual begins. The rhythmic, hypnotic beating of the dwenger drum and the chanting of long, epic oral texts.
To induce trance.
Exactly, to induce a deep trance state. And you might see that intense, violent shaking the kampnu again, which signifies not just trance, but the jhakri's struggle to control the powerful spirits they're engaging with.
So in this state, the jhakri is literally going on a journey. A magical flight.
Yes, that's the belief. In this altered state, the jhakri undertakes a magical flight or soul journey, atma, into the spirit world, the other realms of the cosmos, to locate that lost soul part.
And then what? Just grab it and come back?
It's rarely that simple. Usually a tense negotiation ensues with the spirit that has stolen or captured the soul. The jhakri has to bargain, persuade, sometimes even battle the spirit. Often, the negotiation involves offering the spirit something in return for the soul's release.
Like what?
Most commonly, the promise of a sacrificial animal, usually a chicken or sometimes a goat. This offering appeases the spirit and secures the return of the patient's soul essence.
And the ritual culminates with actually performing that animal sacrifice.
Precisely. That's often the climax. Other therapeutic acts might happen throughout the night too, further purification with fire and water, maybe symbolically sucking noxious spiritual intrusions or objects out of the patient's body. As dawn approaches, the idea is that the soul is located, retrieved, and reintegrated into the patient, and cosmic balance is restored.
And the community is involved in this.
Oh, absolutely. These all-night seances are rarely private affairs. The family, neighbors, the wider community are often present, participating, witnessing, supporting the process. It reinforces communal bonds, shared cosmology, and creates what anthropologists call collective effervescence, a powerful, shared emotional experience.
Do you have any examples?
Yeah, there are documented cases, like one from Humla, where a dhami, in this case acting similarly to a jhakri in function, undertook an arduous all-night journey, battling spirits in trance to retrieve the lost soul of a young woman who was gravely ill. The community witnessed the whole thing, the negotiations spoken through the medium, the eventual sacrifice, and her subsequent recovery. It's powerful stuff. Or a Jumla dhami mediating a land dispute where the deity, speaking through them, delivered a judgment accepted by both parties.
That's an incredibly intricate process. It really paints a picture of a profound, holistic approach to well-being. It really does function like a kind of sophisticated medical triage system, doesn't it? From the non-invasive diagnosis with Jukana to the first aid of Jarfuk, escalating to the major surgery, if you will, of the all-night seance, there's a real indigenous logic of managed care here.
That's a great way to look at it. And when we connect this back to the bigger picture, you really see how the spiritual landscape of Karnali and Humla is characterized by these incredibly fluid, overlapping, and deeply syncretic traditions. It's not neat boxes.
Right. You mentioned Masto showing Buddhist interaction.
Yeah, exactly. For instance, in one Masta oral tradition, a key deity's maternal uncle is named Lama Vishnu. That's an amazing amalgamation, Lama being a Tibetan Buddhist title, and Vishnu a major Hindu god. It shows centuries of interaction and borrowing. And Bonpo traditions, while pre-Buddhist, exist alongside and clearly interact with Tibetan Buddhism and Humla.
That blending is so striking. A powerful symbol of this syncretism must be the shared veneration of sacred geography, right? Like Mount Kailash.
Absolutely. Mount Kailash and the nearby Lake Manasarovar are profoundly sacred sites, revered by Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, and Bonpos alike. Each tradition has its own myths and reasons, but they converge on the sacredness of the place itself.
So this complex layering, it reveals a core insight, doesn't it, about why these different systems coexist.
It really does. You could say that mainstream Hinduism and Buddhism, as they manifest in Nepal, often focus on what scholars might call ultimate liberation or salvation, the big picture goals, often termed soteriological goals. Things like understanding karma, achieving a better rebirth, or eventually escaping the cycle of suffering altogether.
Okay, so those are the long-term, maybe more philosophical goals.
Yeah.
What about the immediate practical needs of daily life? Sickness, disputes, needing rain.
And that's precisely the niche that the indigenous shamanic traditions like Masto and Bon fill so effectively. That's the key difference that allows them to coexist and thrive alongside the bigger religions. They provide these practical, immediate, and very localized toolkits for managing the here and now.
So Masto is about?
Masto is largely about imminent restorative justice and healing through that dose framework we talked about, dealing with correctable imbalances right here, right now.
And Bon.
Bon, particularly in Humla, is deeply focused on ecological diplomacy, negotiating with that powerful sentient landscape for survival and prosperity, ensuring good harvests, preventing natural disasters, protecting livestock.
That vital distinction really explains the persistence of these shamanic systems.
Right.
They're not competing on the same ground. They serve very different, yet equally essential functions for the community.
Exactly. One handles the immediate crises, the other the longer-term spiritual path, and they often blend and overlap in practice.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, broadening out again, when we compare Nepalese shamanism to other shamanic traditions globally, what parallels and contrasts really stand out, say, with Siberia?
Well, shared heritage with Siberian shamanism is often highlighted, and it's quite profound in some ways. Both traditions often feature the drum as a steed or vehicle for spirit flight. Both share the concept of the shamanic illness as a common, often involuntary pathway to becoming a shaman. And the practice of soul journeys to retrieve lost souls or combat spirits is central to both.
But there must be divergences too, right? They aren't identical.
Oh, absolutely. Nepalese cosmology, especially with the Hindu and Buddhist overlays, is arguably far more densely populated with diverse spirits, deities, and ancestors compared to the often simpler tripartite cosmos, upper, middle, lower worlds, described in classic Siberian shamanism.
Any other key differences?
Yes, a subtle but important one might be in the trance technology. While both use drumming, some scholars suggest a difference in emphasis. Perhaps Nepal relying more on the external rhythm of the drum, while some Siberian traditions emphasize cultivating an internal heat or energy for trance. But these are complex comparisons.
Okay. What about contrast with, say, Amazonian shamanism? That feels quite different.
It does, though they share that fundamental animistic worldview, the belief that the natural world is sentient and relational. But the really significant divergence lies in the primary means of achieving trance and gaining knowledge. Amazonian shamanism relies heavily on psychoactive plants and theogens like ayahuasca, peyote, tobacco, San Pedro cactus as the primary trance vehicles and, indeed, as teachers themselves.
Whereas in Nepal?
Whereas in Nepal, as we've seen, the overwhelming emphasis is on non-pharmacological means: drumming, chanting, dancing, fasting, sensory deprivation, or overload. Psychoactive plants are not a central feature of Himalayan shamanism in the way they are in the Amazon.
And does that difference in method plants versus drumming chanting shape the experience or the cosmology itself?
It seems to. For example, Amazonian shamanism often involves themes of transformation, the shaman merging with or becoming animal spirits. In Nepalese traditions like the jhakris, the emphasis is often more on controlling or negotiating with distinct spirit entities, maintaining the shaman's agency even in trance. The method seems to shape the journey.
Interesting. And maybe one more comparison, parallels with Native American traditions.
There are definitely parallels. In many Native American cultures, shamans or medicine people are vital community intermediaries, healers, ceremonial leaders, responsible for maintaining balance between the human community and the spirit world, much like in Nepal. They address both physical and spiritual ailments.
But again, with local distinctiveness.
Of course. You see huge divergences in the specific pantheons of spirits and deities, the ritual languages used, the specific tools and ceremonies. And importantly, the historical context is vastly different. Native American traditions have endured centuries of colonization, disruption, and forced assimilation, which has deeply impacted their practice and transmission in ways that Nepal, while facing modernization, hasn't experienced to the same degree. Nepal has seen more continuous syncretism rather than radical disruption.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really highlights that while the function of the shaman, the mediator, the healer, the balancer, seems to be a near universal human adaptation, the specific form it takes is profoundly local. It's shaped by the environment, the history, the chosen trance technology.
Exactly. The function is similar. The expression is unique.
Which brings us to the relevance today, thinking about ancient wisdom for modern crises. Can we understand shamanic healing as a kind of culturally embedded psychotherapy?
I think that's a very useful lens, yes. It clearly addresses psychological alienation, anxiety, and social fragmentation. How? By resituating personal suffering within a meaningful cosmic and social context. It's not just your problem in isolation.
And the community's involvement is key there.
Absolutely. The community participation directly counteracts the isolation that often comes with illness, especially mental illness, in the West. It becomes a collective journey towards healing, reinforcing social bonds.
It's truly profound. And what's fascinating is how phenomena that Western psychiatry might label as mental illness, say an intense psychological crisis, hearing voices, having visions, is often interpreted quite differently in Nepalese shamanic culture.
Right. It might be seen as a spiritual emergency, a sign of spirit affliction, or even significantly as a potential calling to become a healer, a sign that spirits are trying to make contact.
That offers a completely different narrative, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A culturally resonant story and potentially a clear path toward resolution and integration, rather than just a diagnosis and medication.
Exactly. And the shaman often embodies multiple roles we separate. They're the healer, the diviner making the diagnosis, the counselor offering guidance, sometimes even the adjudicator settling disputes. It's a truly integrated role within the community fabric.
And moving beyond the psychological, that animistic worldview we discussed is also a potent source of ecological wisdom, isn't it?
Hugely potent. The core idea that nature is sentient and that human health is intrinsically relational to the health of the environment directly counters the dominant modern anthropocentric view that treats nature as just an inert resource to be exploited.
It's that eco-spiritual ethic again.
Yes. Illness and misfortune are directly linked to transgressions against the environment, disrespecting spirits of the land, water, forests. This provides a powerful, built-in spiritual incentive for respecting ecological boundaries. The consequences aren't abstract. They're feared to be direct, personal, and immediate retribution from offended spirits.
And we saw concrete examples of this earlier, right?
Yeah, with the Bonpo rituals for ecological diplomacy, appeasing water spirits and clue, to prevent floods or ensure clean water, negotiating with land spirits for fertile crops, and the Masto cult's role in ensuring rain and protecting harvests. It's applied ecology through ritual means.
And beyond individual healing and ecology, we've seen how Masto and Bonpo traditions are integral systems for social regulation and justice, too. Communal rituals foster social bonds and reinforce cultural identity.
Definitely. They are systems that hold communities together in multiple ways.
However, there's a growing global interest in shamanism, which sounds positive, but you mentioned dangers, the rise of neo-shamanists.
Yes, it's a real double-edged sword. While genuine interest can foster appreciation, there's a significant danger of cultural appropriation and commodification.
What does that look like? The weekend shaman workshop kind of thing.
That's often part of it. Critics point to things like core shamanism, popularized by figures like Michael Harner, which aim to distill universal shamanic techniques. The critique is that this often strips practices entirely of their vital cultural context, their specific cosmologies, their ethical frameworks, and simplifies them for a Western audience seeking quick spiritual fixes or experiences.
It becomes a kind of spiritual extractivism, taking the techniques without the deep roots, the responsibilities, the lineage.
Precisely. It risks turning profound lifelong commitments and community roles into a form of do-it-yourself spirituality, often for commercial gain. And beyond the ethical issues of appropriation, there are real psychological dangers.
Dangers like
Engaging with powerful trance techniques or trying to interact with spirit realms without the traditional safeguards, the community support, the specific cultural understanding. It can be destabilizing. It can lead to spiritual bypassing, using spiritual ideas to avoid dealing with psychological issues, or in some cases, even trigger serious psychological crises or psychosis, especially without the proper cultural framework to understand and integrate the experiences.
So it's not just about respecting culture, it's about safety.
It is. These traditions developed elaborate safety protocols and community instructions for a reason.
Yet despite all these pressures, modernization, globalization, maybe inappropriate appropriation, you're saying, these traditions in Karnali and Humla remain remarkably resilient.
They really do. They continue to serve as the old way, the deep cultural bedrock that still guides many indigenous people, especially when modern systems fail or don't address the root causes as they perceive them.
The wisdom isn't in the easily packaged technique then.
No. The true wisdom resides in the land itself, in the lineage passed down through generations, and in those vast, intricate oral traditions that connect people to their specific place and its spirits, not in decontextualized, globalized practices, which really raises that important question. How can we learn from this ancient wisdom respectfully without repeating the colonial mistakes of extraction and appropriation?
That's the crucial question. So our deep dive today into the living cosmos of Nepal has revealed this incredibly vibrant, intricate spiritual landscape. We've seen the distinct, yet often complementary roles of the jhakri, the master of spirits, and the dhami, the oracular vessel, and how they operate within the specific traditions of the Masto cult in Karnali and the Bompo traditions in Humla. We've explored their ingenious ritual toolkit, from the diagnostic Jokana divination to the cleansing Jarfuk, and those profound all-night healing seances that really function like a sophisticated system of indigenous managed care.
It's a remarkably logical and resilient system designed to address practical, immediate needs within their worldview.
It really is. And this brings us, I think, to a final provocative thought for everyone listening. Consider just for a moment how deeply intertwined our own well-being, our mental, social, and ecological health really is with the way we relate to the world around us.
Yeah, it challenges our modern assumptions.
It does. Perhaps the dominant disenchanted worldview of modernity, the one that often treats nature as inert, just resources, and sees individual experience as fundamentally isolated. Perhaps that view could learn immensely from the kind of re-enchantment offered by these ancient traditions.
A world alive with meaning and a relationship.
Exactly. So the question to ponder is, what would it mean for you to embrace, even slightly, a more animistic perspective in your own life? Not necessarily adopting beliefs wholesale, but shifting perspective.
How might that shift your actions, your sense of connection or belonging in the wider world, beyond just human society?
Maybe think about what it truly means to achieve balance, not just personal internal harmony, but extending that balance to our relationship with the natural world, maybe even with unseen forces or the deeper dimensions of reality, as these Himalayan shamans have understood and practiced for centuries.
It's a profound challenge to our modern way of being.